Hello, everybody. My name is Carter Moulton. I'm from Northwestern University, and I hope you're well. I hope you're healthy, happy in this moment. I'm just going to talk a little bit about my research into theme parks today. My presentation is called Down into the Vaults, Drillable Immersion at Franchise Lands. Comparing the spatial organization of today's theme parks to that of subscription-based services like Netflix, HBO, Amazon Prime, or portals, as Amanda Lotz calls them, reveals a common logic of curating, theming, and paywalling IP so as to create brandscapes, or cultural spaces where brand meanings are developed and circulated within an ideological setting. There are parallels, for instance, between the spatial logic of Disney's themed lands and Disney Plus, which features individual pages for Star Wars, Pixar, Marvel, National Geographic, and Disney brands. Here, each subportal acts as a kind of theme land that cultivates brand loyalty by organizing viewing experiences into discrete brandoms rather than fandoms. The recent trend toward homogenizing streaming libraries, so for instance, Disney Plus only houses Disney original content, while Netflix, Amazon, and Apple all invest in their own original productions. So we're kind of moving towards that homogenization. Mirrors the theme park industry's shift from individual rides to full-scale lands that invite visitors to join the cause of the resistance on a remote planet, or to answer the call of the Avengers, or to explore the immersive world of Avatar in person. This spatial homogenization or smoothing over of park space is seen most clearly at Universal's upcoming Beijing resort, which will be split into 6 lands, each based on one single franchise. Permits for Universal's upcoming theme park Epic Universe reveal similar organization, with full-scale lands being developed for Fantastic Beasts, How to Train Your Dragon, and Super Mario franchises. Given their many multi-sensory and interactive offerings, we talk about these places, fans and scholars both talk about these places as highly immersive places, sites that facilitate sensations of entering into the world of the story, as Jenkins put it, and of passing from one realm to the other. Yet, despite industry claims of total immersion, fans more accurately experience these sites by oscillating between and drawing from their previous experiences as spectators, participants, players, and importantly, consumers. Through a sort of distance immersion or disenchanted enchantment, fans navigate a distinctive recombination of ordinary world, media world, commercial world, and fan world, which displays traces of all these different domains, but does not really blur them into a hyper-reality or a loss of fantasy reality. Instead, visitors react to the amalgam of worlds, not so much becoming immersed, but instead passing through insistent portals and symbolic thresholds all the way to the exit, to the museum, the exit to the gift shop, and the exit to Cardiff Bay. That's Matt Hill's writing on Doctor Who experience. So this was a really important quote for me, and I wanted to think about this layering. So in this presentation, I want to theorize the layering of thresholds and experiences through the concept of what I'm calling drillable immersion. So if immersive experiences are understood as multisensory, embodied, and participatory sensations of entering a space that immediately identifies itself as somehow separate from the world, drillable immersion is the logic of layering these sensations through multiple physical, conceptual, and economic thresholds so as to construct an experiential center, a sort of core which functions as the most potent experience of immersion. Drillable immersion occurs when immersive experiences are designed as a set of attractions within attractions, threshold crossings within threshold crossings, and importantly, commodities within commodities. This layering of sites worth seeing, experiences worth having, and prices worth paying further encloses such sites and experiences, enshrining them with additional meaning while also safeguarding them ever more closely within industry-owned places. So my concept of drillable immersion, it's inspired by Jason Mittell's work on drillable engagement. Standing in contrast to media's sort of horizontal spreadability in the digital age, drillable textuality sees the industry creating magnets of engagement, drawing viewers into story worlds and urging them to drill down to discover more. While it engages far fewer people, drillability occupies more of their time and energies, and as I will focus on, money, in a vertical descent into a text's complexities. Though Mittell is thinking about drillability in terms of digital media fandom and television, we can also apply it to the economic and immersive architectures of franchise lands. As fans drill their way inward through a series of thresholds of consumption, they enter into and are rewarded by ever-intensifying sensations of exclusivity, surroundedness, and here and nowness, that sense of being immersed in the moment, which represents the peak experience for visitors. And some of that's taken from Alison Griffith's work on immersion. So today I'm going to outline 3 ways I'm seeing drillable immersion built into the experience of franchise lands. First, franchise lands, they invite drillable forms of engagement by encouraging modes of forensic fandom, where fans might apply their forensic efforts to connect the narrative dots of the texts. Second, drillability is spatialized in ride cues and narratives in ways which construct a sense of inward movement through multiple layers of physical, sensual, conceptual, and ludic modes of immersion. And third, the logic of drillable immersion is ultimately being mobilized to encourage additional capitalistic consumption within experiential enclosures, which is something I'm developing for my dissertation. So through this process, access to these cores are reduced, and immersion is stratified into various tiered pricing structures, in-park purchases, and gate fees. The rising cost that comes with drillable immersion underscores the logics of inclusion and exclusion at such themed lands, alluding to a larger history of theme parks as proponents of marginalization, both in terms of colorblind racism and class-based stratification. So, franchise lands make material the idea that fans embrace their contemporary role as, quote, informational hunters and gatherers, taking pleasure in tracking down character backgrounds and plot points and making connections between different texts within the same franchise. And that's Jenkins' quote. Mittell proposes that one of the most prominent features of drillable textuality is that it encourages this mode of forensic fandom that invites viewers to dig deeper, probing beneath the surface to understand the complexity of a story and its telling. So at theme parks, the spatialization of forensic-minded fandom often leads to the crowd-sourced construction of new sights to see and souvenirs to keep within franchise and theme park fan subcultures. For example, the fake waterfalls at Pandora World of Avatar, which in reality are just cleverly hidden wheels to create the illusion of falling water, they became a fan-created point of interest, whereas Rebecca Williams has shown how at the Haunted Mansion, fans began to claim that a wedding ring belonging to the mansion's bride could be seen embedded in the concrete on the ground outside the attraction. Although the ring was actually just a steel loop used to hold posts for railings, Disney responded to the fanish readings by adding an actual wedding ring to the floor outside in 2011, thus incorporating them into the official space of the attraction. This commodification of fandom's finding practices often leads to the creation of new merchandise. After fans began pocketing the uniquely designed metal sporks at Docking Bay 7 restaurant at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Disney quickly switched the sporks for standard cutlery and began selling them for $11. Forensic fandom's tendency toward collective intelligence is redirected at franchise lands through pseudo-hidden elements, Easter eggs, and multiplayer gameplay. So the industrial provisioning of secret spots and sites to find, generate a sanctioned sense of excitement and discovery in guests who, upon finding one, have the sense that they're seeing something that no one else has. Finding the hidden Mickeys in Pandora World of Avatar and Galaxy's Edge have become well-known Easter eggs in Disney parks, while locating one of 2 secret spellcasting locations in Diagon Alley, or seeing on the right here, this goblin named Creature, pop out of the window. These occur at the Wizarding World. The investigative mode of address is also etched into the interactive wand map, where the instructions for casting dark magic spells in Nocturne Alley are written on invisible ink that only appears under a black light. At retail experiences like Doc Ondor's Den of Antiquities at Galaxy's Edge, forensic fandom is built into the very spaces and practices of consumption. Here, purchasable merchandise is displayed along exhibits of various artifacts, weapons, relics, and helmets from the canonical Star Wars universe. Some of these museum artifacts are, of course, elevated and kept out of reach, but fans are invited to survey the walls and test their ability to identify particular items. Some of these are easily recognizable, like the Medal of Bravery given to Luke and Han Solo at the end of A New Hope, while others are extremely obscure, like a statue from Jedda's Temple of the Khyber, which is only vaguely linked to Rogue One, a Star Wars story in which Doc Ondor is said to retrieve in one of the Galaxy's Edge comic books. I had to look that up. I had no idea what that was. This mixture of iconic and obscure items provides something for everyone while rewarding those fans who can drill down into the reservoirs of Star Wars transmedia canon. In doing so, the retail experience provides the framework for a ludic sense of immersion, which arises, quote, when one is able to achieve a satisfying balance of challenges and abilities in locating the items, end quote, in locating the items. And that's from Irma and Mayar's work on immersion. Forensic-minded fandom is also incorporated directly into liminal merchandise. At Doc Ondor's, fans can buy kyber crystals of various colors for $13, which, when inserted into the shaft of the lightsaber, can change the saber's color. Those buying red crystals have the rare chance of finding a limited edition black crystal inside. While the odds of receiving one are debated, the rarity and secrecy of the black crystal has led it to being sold on eBay for as much as $1,000. Fans quickly realized they could identify the rare black crystal by shining a cell phone flashlight at the crystal to kind of capture the color of it and identify it before purchasing. And you could actually, there's some images of fans kind of scanning the walls of the store with their flashlights, trying to find those. But though Disney doesn't allow that anymore, and they quickly redesigned the crystal packaging to block flashlight identification, the fanish investigation for black kyber crystals makes clear that the industrial spatialization and materialization of drillable modes of engagement, it evokes a particularly kind of embodied and consumptive mode of finding the truth, spatial mode of finding the truth exploration. All right, so the second mode of drillable immersion, it's built into the experience of waiting in line. Queuing can be considered a form of fan labor insofar as fan bodies form the, quote, material trajectories and hierarchies of the line that they produce through fans' willingness to wait, kind of creating a perceived value in waiting. Because the industry seeks to reduce visitor impatience by shifting focus away from this labor, ride queues are purposefully designed as a sequential series of pre-attraction areas that give guests a sense of progress and forward movement toward the goal of experiencing the attraction. This is, of course, done by fostering fan engagement through forensic-minded practices of spatial discovery and object identification during the pre-ride experience. The queue for Hogwarts and the Forbidden Journey, for instance, allows riders to survey various rooms of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, while visitors waiting for the Frozen Ever After ride are led through shops and taverns of the diegetic village of Arendelle, with each shop containing decorative displays, Easter eggs, and nods to the film. Most recently, the line experience for Smuggler's Run at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge integrated a scavenger hunt minigame using the Disney Play app that can be completed by standing in specific locations throughout the queue while you wait. At dark ride attractions like the Escape from Gringotts, Harry Potter, drillable immersion informs the spatial mapping of the narrative. Here, narrative progression is conflated with bodily movement inward through a series of layered spaces and ways that direct movement toward the core experience itself. Escape from Gringotts takes it quite literally when we're talking about drillability, guiding visitors into cavernous vaults deep below the Earth's surface. Upon entry, guests are addressed as muggles who wish to tour the bank and open an account. Moving through the recognizable marble lobby, down the corridors, and into the subterranean vaults, attendees encounter interactive moments with animatronic goblins and costume staff and view short scenes shot exclusively for the ride. The art director on this ride, Alan Gilmore, describes the spatial logic by interchanging the concepts of immersion and layeredness. Quote, "It's so layered and so detailed. It's not just a queue in a ride. The queue is a ride as well, and there are moments along the queue that are experiences of their own right, like small rides. As the queue moves guests through multiple chambers of secrets, it structures pulses of intense experience which play out as a miniature crisis of expectation, fulfillment, and disappointment, created as we wait to find if we are really at the end of the line and going to board the ride, until at last we pass on to the next chamber and we have to wait longer." That's an idea from Jeff King's work. This manipulation of expectation, as King describes it, constitutes a bodily form of discipline in the Foucauldian sense, a way of conditioning the body and evoking a false sense of autonomy, which in reality is a subtle form of power. And Linda Williams makes this work really clear in her work on Psycho. I think it's such a good example of thinking about line waiting that's from the past, but we can bring it up here to think. about theme parks, arguing that the emergence of post-classical cinema saw a convergence of theme park and cinema-going practices wherein the social disciplining of audiences into long lines helped to exacerbate the anticipation of terror provided by these attractions. So in the case of Psycho, that meant the increased policing of cinema-goers' bodies. You have to show up at this time, you have to wait in line, actually evoked a newfound sense of the audience being bonded around the film text, producing an intensified sense of camaraderie and unlocking a, quote, new level of performativity wherein the audiences began to perceive their own performances as part of the show. So by disciplining and training audiences on how to wait in the line at the movies, or in our case, the transmedia ride, a bargain is struck between the industry and the audience, which is an exchange of discipline for immersive fun. As a spatial form, then, the ride queue serves as a fitting metaphor for the logic of drillable immersion. It's a way of encouraging limited modes of forensic discovery while ultimately disciplining fan bodies and orienting them inward and forward toward a deferred promise of immersion located just through the next door or with the next purchase. Riders of the Flight of Passage at Pandora World of Avatar are subjected to a collective body scan here on the right, before they can proceed, whereas in Rise of the Resistance on the left at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, it's facilitated through a narrative of being captured by the First Order. Costume staff sternly play the role of First Order officers, instructing them that they are, quote, due for an interrogation on your right, and must swiftly move on to the next part of the queue. Guests are prodded along with phrases like, this is not a suggestion, this is an order, sort of the performative disciplining. So in both Escape from Gringotts and this Rise from the Resistance ride, the layering of discipline and thrill climax with the appearance of each franchise's primary antagonist. Near the end of Rise of the Resistance, Kylo Ren emerges to threaten riders, quote, you will tell me the location of the secret base, and then I will destroy you in the Resistance. In Escape from Gringotts, Voldemort appears, commanding guests to reveal the location of Harry Potter. Quote, perhaps a little dose of pain will help you remember, he yells, catapulting the ride backwards at high speed. Voldemort's appearance is made all the more meaningful because of his conceptual positioning at the climax of the ride narrative and his spatial positioning within the deepest point of two layered structures. His spatial positioning in the cavernous depths of Gringotts Bank. He is, in other words, enshrined within the deepest point of two layered structures, a sequenced narrative of discipline and release that's been happening, in a physical place which is only accessible by passing through numerous thresholds, a layering, and that extends all the way back from, entering the gates to Walt Disney World or Universal Studios. So as these rides expand the franchise experience with physical sensations appropriate to the narrative, they also organize these sensations around a logic of disciplined drillability that equates bodily movement inward with phenomenological movement upward. Now, the third way I'm thinking about drillable immersion, because it creates ever deeper cores of experience, it's also mobilized to maximize industry profits in ways that are increasingly classist and exclusionary. Through a linking of conceptual immersion and commercial transaction, drillable immersion as a business model suggests that traveling deeper and deeper into a galaxy far away is only possible through the purchase of additional merchandise and experiences once inside the park. In fact, both Universal and Disney list higher guest spending as in the parks as a key contributor to recent boom in theme park revenues. Fans may still visit a franchise land and ride the rides and photograph the environments without buying anything else, but there is a growing idea that doing so constitutes an incomplete experience. Buying items like the $50 interactive wand at Wizarding World, a $199 lightsaber at Galaxy's Edge, a power-up wristband at Super Nintendo World, these unlock interactive experiences throughout the park. Ordering a burger at the Diegetic Flows V8 Cafe unlocks a gustatory sense of immersion at Cars Land, and purchasing an expensive multi-park pass doubles as a ticket on the Hogwarts Express to travel between Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley in areas of the Wizarding World. And just this week, I had to add it, Disney announced that they were going to be doing these web power bands for $35 to unlock web-slinging capabilities for riders of Spider-Man ride at Avengers Campus, which is set to open. For another $30 on top of that $35, you can then have add-ons that are clicked into the band and give you different powers based on different superheroes like Iron Man and Spider-Man. This conflation of the economic and immersive architectures of franchise lands is perhaps best evidenced at Gringotts Money Exchange in the Wizarding World, where guests can ask questions to an animatronic goblin while swapping muggle money for wizarding currency that can be used at shops and restaurants throughout the park. The presence of these purchasables, whether they're wands, crystals, food items, wristbands, droids, and so forth, sees the theme park industry drawing on free-to-play revenue models from the video game and mobile app industries, structuring gameplay through a series of in-app purchases or microtransactions that can be used to upgrade, customize, or unlock new skills and game features. Yet an important difference here is, unlike free-to-play games, which are, as the name suggests, free to access at first, franchise lands layer these microtransactions on top of already expensive entry fees. Pine and Gilmore suggest one must be able to pay in order to pay. So in the full-fledged experience economy, we will see not only portions of retail stores, but entire shopping malls charge admission before a person is allowed to set foot in a store. So we could call this a pay-to-play model. We can situate that in a longer history of exclusionary theme park ticketing practices, including the relocation of parks away from local sites to getaway destinations with sometimes no public transportation, and the introduction of universal gate fees. And scholars like J.A. Morris and Sabrina Mittermeier have noted both of these shifts. They were purposefully designed to reduce access to undesirables through greater spatial control, a kind of codifying theme park leisure as a white middle-class activity. And so I mapped the single-day ticket prices adjusted for inflation of Walt Disney World, and you can see the tiering here introduced as sort of a separation between the lowest tier and highest tier. But it's kind of hard to get a clear picture of what's going on just because there are so many options. There's multi-day ticket tiers, park hopper multi-park tickets, hotel bundles with premium add-ons, seasonal tiering windows, beginning with 3 tiers in 2016 and 5 tiers in 2019, and then hard ticket events which are held after hours in the park, which regular ticket holders can't access. So this tiering and layering of immersive experiences builds additional economic and social barriers for fans while also making class-conscious pitches to those with excess capital. This is being taken to an extreme at Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. It's an experience that blends hotel, dining, cruise ship, theme park, transmedia storytelling, and gamic elements into a 2-night, 3-day immersive experience. It's set to range around $3,300 for one person. On top of the baseline experiences offered at Galaxy's Edge, Star Cruiser will house exclusive experiences like lightsaber training, interactive dining, exclusive character interactions, and a narrative experience where the ship is attacked by Kylo Ren in the First Order. Star Cruiser guests are also able to take part in secret missions throughout the park, entering otherwise restricted areas and encountering unique interactive elements only available to those guests. Galactic Star Cruiser constructs much of its immersive appeal through the capitalist practice of reserving particular experiences and areas of the park for those who are capable and willing to pay an additional fee. And this logic is also informing app-based minigames where drillable exploration is being linked to currency accumulation that can be used to access exclusive experiences. So visitors at Galaxy's Edge will soon be able to sync their mobile phones and credit cards to purchase premium missions throughout the park, while at Super Nintendo World on the left, guests can use their park-bought wristbands to collect coins and digital keys throughout the land that unlock new areas and boss battles. Of course, at Universal, visitors can pay $90 for an express pass, which allows them to take in more attractions by skipping the regular lines an unlimited number of times at participating rides. Both Disney and Universal have normalized the visibility of these inequitable queues, which naturally construct an awareness of that inequity that's been shown to draw attention to the wait for other fans and build impatience. So, to wrap up, in addition to being a forensic-minded exploratory practices, and a spatially layered arena of play, Drillable Immersion is also being mobilized as an industry strategy to further entrench conceptions of awe and wonder into commercialized experiences by preserving the core for those who pay more. And the profit motive here is also, and I explore this in my dissertation, informing the integration of tracking technologies throughout theme parks and fan surveillance. And here you can see this is the Star Wars data pad, sort of permissions you have to give over in order to use the app. All of these developments testify to the convergence culture industry's recognition of and reliance on an active, participatory fandom in today's networked culture. But more than this, they also testify to the ways in which new media logics like drillability are being extended and applied to lived experience in ways that are reshaping where, when, and how fandom takes place. Thanks so much for listening. I know I went a little over, but if you want to talk about this more, just reach out to me on Twitter at Carter Moulton, and I look forward to discussing this more with all you. Thank you.